Hi, welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I'm doing a Q&A. As you could tell from the title of this video, this Q&A is like a celebration of 500 subscribers here on YouTube. I was so excited to hit 500 because there's certain things YouTube lets you do once you have 500 subscribers. It used to be 1,000, but now they let you do these things with only 500 subscribers. So I now have the community tab and I can tag people in videos. So that's really exciting to me. I asked you guys in a poll on my community tab how you would like to celebrate, and the answer was overwhelmingly a Q&A video. So that's what we're doing today. I was so kind of nervous to do this, not record the video itself, but to ask for questions for a Q&A, because I was really worried that there wouldn't be that many people who would submit questions, and then I'd be sitting here and be like, I have 3 questions to answer. But apparently I needn't have worried. So many of you submitted questions, some of you submitted multiple questions, so thank you so much for your questions. Some of these in here are like so creative, which is really cool. So I'm dividing these questions up into 3 categories. I have bookish questions, I have like booktube/YouTube questions, and then I have like just personal questions. Also, I was hoping this would be the quietest room in the house, but there's definitely some background noise going on, so it still is the quietest room in the house. But I guess if you've been here for a little while, you know that sometimes the background of my videos get noisy, especially when the kittens are rambunctious. Although all the background noise right now is my daughter, so I don't know what's going on with that. But anyways, let's dive in. I'm actually gonna start with like YouTube-y type questions because actually I have 2 of those. So we're just gonna start with that. So the first question is advice to starting your own booktube channel. And I have not been doing this for very long. I am actually almost at the 1-year point. I am only like a couple weeks away from my 1-year anniversary, which is also really exciting. But I am not very experienced in booktubing at all. So I guess my biggest advice to you is to just start doing it. It's so easy to think like, oh, well, I want to wait until I have enough money to buy a specific camera or a specific microphone or whatever, but like you can just start on your phone and that's fine. Lots of booktubers use their phone. I actually use my phone to record all of my videos, and I even edit them on my phone with like free editing software and everything. And at some point I might like to upgrade those kinds of things, but for right now this is a hobby. It does not make me any money at all, so I'm not really investing money in it right now. I'm just like enjoying booktube in general, and the friends that I make here and stuff. That's probably like the best parts. But that's really my only advice in starting out, is to just do it. That was the advice given to me because I'm only on booktube because of Chantel at Chantel Reads All Day. She's the one who got me into watching booktube when she started uploading videos, and then we're also pen pals, so I talked to her a lot about like wanting to start a YouTube channel but not being so sure about it, and she's the one who talked me into all of it. And her biggest advice to me was just start. I mean, you're gonna learn as you grow, you're gonna make mistakes, and everything's not gonna be perfect, so might as well jump in and just get started. Plus, I feel like booktube is the corner of the internet, I was gonna say the internet, but of YouTube that is like, we're the friendliest over here. I'm just saying, there's like almost never any booktube drama, and there certainly isn't with smaller booktubers. There probably is with some bigger ones, I don't know, but it's just a great community to be a part of. And then the other YouTube question on here is your favorite non-book related channel. I don't watch a ton of YouTube consistently other than booktube channels, but I have a couple of channels that I do watch semi-frequently. One of which is, I think her channel name's Amanda Rachley, and she does bullet journaling, so I love her videos, and she does lots of videos on like doodling instructions, but it's just really fun to like see her planners and to watch her and all the stuff that she does. And then I also like, this is like a really weird random thing, I love Mama Dr. Jones. She is an OBGYN, and she just does so many like sciencey videos, and I always have found anatomy and human body science like incredibly fascinating. I actually was in school to become a nurse, and then I had some health problems crop up, and then I got married, so I kind of like ditched it, which is fine, but that kind of stuff has always just been so interesting to me. So I love her videos, and sometimes she does some reviews on like TV shows, like birthing scenes on TV shows, or like the I Didn't Know I Was Pregnant show. She's done a ton of those, and they're just really entertaining to get her perspective on those things. All right, next I'm gonna dive into book-related questions. So the first question I have here is the first book that kept you up all night reading. And I can't remember specifically exactly what that was because I always used to take books to bed for as long as I can remember. But the books I consistently remember as a child keeping me up late was the Nancy Drew series. Like, I loved Nancy Drew so much. And the mysteries would just like keep me on the edge of my seat. So I want to keep reading and figure out what's going on, what's behind all this stuff. So I would probably say Nancy Drew was probably my first book that kept me up really late at night. The next question is, what was your inspiration to start reading Russian literature? It's kind of a funny answer because I didn't have any inspiration at all. I know that it sounds so weird, but I walked into my library one day and was just randomly perusing the shelves. I think maybe I was looking for Dickens books because I was in the D's, and I just saw Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and I was like, I wonder if that's any good because I've heard of it, so I'm just gonna pick it up and see what I think. And I didn't even have any frame of reference for Russian literature at all. So I picked it up like really not knowing anything and absolutely fell in love. I loved it so much. I flew through it. And then not that long after, I picked up Anna Karenina by Tolstoy and loved that one. And then we've just continued on this journey ever since, and it is like fast becoming like my favorite subgenre of classic literature. But Victorian literature is up there too. So I can't say it's like my ultimate favorite, but it's one of two favorites. The next question I actually got a couple of times, and it's, is there a genre that you definitely wouldn't read? And the answer to that is probably not, because there's a lot of genres that I don't prefer, but I have picked up books from those genres. So I can't say like never ever. But the two genres that I'm really not interested in at all is romance and horror. I'm not really into either of those, but I have read books in both those genres that I have enjoyed at the time. Well, maybe not romance, actually. I don't think I've ever sat down and read a romance book and like really loved it. It has to have something else going for it in the plot for me to enjoy it, and then usually the romance aspect is often my least favorite part of the book. So maybe romance would be the answer I would give. The next question is, what fantastical or magical ability would you want to have and why? And the answer to that question, I didn't even have to think about it. It's teleportation. Like, I've wanted to be able to teleport since I was 15 and I moved across the country from my best friends, and I just wished and wished and wished there was some way I could just like go to their house really quick and be with them. And now our family lives really far apart. My parents live like 10 to 11 hours away from me. My sister lives like 20 hours away from me. Our in-laws live like 16 hours away from us. So I often wish that I could just teleport and be able to see them, even if it's just like for a few minutes or something, and then come back home, but not have to worry about the forever long drive. The next question is, how did you fall in love with classics? And the answer to that is my dad. My dad is how I fell in love with classics. My dad was always talking about books that he loved to read, and he didn't read a ton of fictional books when I was growing up just for himself. He was really busy. He was going to school trying to get a degree and had 3 children and was pastoring full time, and sometimes even had a part-time job in addition to those things. So when he was reading things to help him with his sermon or things that had to do with school. So he was always reading spiritual nonfiction, but he often talked about like his favorite books that he loved and fictional books. And he's a huge fan of Charles Dickens. And I remember him as a kid saying his favorite Charles Dickens book was Martin Chuzzlewit. And I picked it up as like, oh gosh, I was probably like 10 or 11. I can't remember for sure exactly what age I was, but I picked it up and read it because I was a total daddy's girl, and I was like, oh, dad loves this book, and so I want to read it. And so that was part of the reason why. He also would read aloud to me before bed every night, and one of the first books that I remember him reading aloud to me is Silas Marner by George Eliot, which is another Victorian novel. And I still remember because he had different voices he'd use for different characters, and I still remember inside jokes that we had surrounding that story. So my dad is absolutely the reason why I got into classics at such a young age, and I think it's why I love them now so much as an adult. They don't really intimidate me. Some of them might in regards to length, but I'm really not intimidated by classics in general, and I think it was because my dad made them so accessible and wonderful to me as a kid. The next question is your favorite book as a child, and there's a lot of books I read as a kid. I read a lot of Nancy Drew, I read a lot of the Babysitter's Club, but I think that my favorite book like of all time when I was young would have to be The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. That is a book that I returned to and read over and over and over again, and I love to play it all the time. I was a very imaginative child and would play act whatever I was reading or whatever TV show or movie I happened to be really into at the time. So one of the things I remember playing the most is The Secret Garden, and it was something I could play like mostly by myself. So if my sister didn't want to play it with me, then I could just play it on my own because Mary was on her own for so much of the book. The next question is your favorite book as a teen, and I was really into classics as a teen, so I would say my favorite classics as a teen would be The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas, and then Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. But my other favorite type of book to read was like Christian thrillers, and I really loved Ted Dekker. I would say that my favorite Ted Dekker book as a teenager was definitely 3 by him, which I actually just reread recently. I'll have to link that reading vlog because it was like my nostalgic reading vlog. I took the month of September to reread all kinds of books that I just absolutely love from my childhood. So that one made the list, and I reread that one as an adult. I wouldn't say it's still a favorite, but it was decent. It was decent. The next question is, do you have a favorite book of all time other than the Bible? And the answer to that is no. I can't just choose like a favorite book. I wish I could, but I really can't. Because it doesn't even say fictional book either. So that doesn't help, because I have a lot of nonfictions that have been like very formative in my life as a parent and as a Christian. So there's all those books that are really meaningful to me, and then there's like all of the classics that I absolutely love and read over and over again. So I can't pick a favorite of all time. Not one book anyway. The next question is, what's one fiction book and one non-fiction book that you would recommend to everyone? I would say fiction book is kind of difficult because everyone's reading tastes are kind of different. But if I'm going with a fictional book, I guess that I would consider very impactful and I want everyone to read, I would have to recommend Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this is the second time I have mentioned this book in my video. But anyways, I really recommend that book to a lot of people for multiple reasons. The first reason being is that people think Russian classics are super scary, and Crime and Punishment proved to me that they're not. And it doesn't have quite as much tangents in terms of like philosophical meandering that some of other Dostoevsky and Tolstoy works have. It does have some of that, but not quite as much. And the other reason why is because I think that this is absolutely a brilliant book, and it's so beautifully redemptive. It does such a great job of exploring human nature and evil and God, and just like, it's just really good. I really recommend it to everyone, honestly. And that doesn't mean that everyone's gonna love it as much as I did, but I think that it has so much merit and is just really beautiful and not as difficult as probably a lot of people think. And then a nonfiction book I would recommend to everyone would have to be Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. I think that this is a super accessible book, despite the fact that it was written so long ago. C.S. Lewis's writing is just very clear, and he uses a lot of metaphors to impart deep spiritual truths that are difficult to understand otherwise. And I would recommend this to people who are not Christians, because the book basically goes over the basic tenets of Christian faith. But even like the first section is very much talking about people's arguments against God and ultimate morality, and then his takes on those things. And I just think that that is like really fascinating. So I think that even if you're not a Christian, you would be really interested in that part of the book especially, which is like the first part. The next question is a fictional character you'd most want to be friends with in real life. This is like such a good question. I love this question. Kaylee from Luminous Libro has actually done like a whole video on characters she'd like to be friends with in real life, and I really want to do a whole video about that because I think that that would be really fun. But if I'm going to choose one character, it would have to be Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. I think that Sam is the best friend of all time. And I think that he is the hero of Lord of the Rings and the best character, and you will not change my mind. You won't change my mind. He's the best. I just think he is just the most tender-hearted, compassionate, and selfless friend ever. I could have chosen other literary characters who I feel like are like me, but Sam is someone who I think would inspire me to be better than I am, and would be a good influence on me, and that I would also have a good time with as well. So I just love Sam. Sam's best. The next question is, how many books do you typically read at once? And that varies, but I always have at least 3 books going at one time. So I always have like a nonfiction book going, a classic, and then usually something else. So I usually always have 3 books going at one time, but it can be as many as 6. It just kind of depends. Like right now I actually have 4 books going, so it varies a lot, but usually at least 3. The next question is your favorite location to read, and that's probably my couch most of the time. I have a really comfy couch and I love sitting there. Sometimes I like sitting in my bed, which is where I am right now. That's very comfortable as well. And then if the weather is nice, I love reading on my porch swing. It is like my favorite thing. I just love sitting in the sunshine and reading, but right now it's a little chilly to sit outside. It's not super cold because we're in southern Kentucky, so it's not like, it's a lot warmer than where we lived in Illinois before here, but it's still chilly to actually just sit. The next question is, do you have a favorite drink that you like to drink while you're reading? And I do. I love tea while I'm reading. I also like coffee if like I need to get something done after I'm reading, but typically I just love tea, especially in like the afternoons or evenings when I'm reading. It's just my favorite. So I have a couple of teas that I really enjoy right now. I typically drink non-caffeinated teas unless I'm drinking them earlier in the afternoon or I can't sleep, but I love a good chai tea. But right now I'm enjoying blueberry chamomile tea. Actually, I think it's blueberry vanilla chamomile tea that I got, and it's so good. I'm really loving that. The next question is, I love this question. If you were stuck on a deserted island and could only have 3 books, which 3 would you bring? And this is a painful question actually, because I really am not sure I could choose. So book number 1 would actually definitely be the Bible. Like that is easy for me to answer that because that's a book I read every day anyway. But beyond that, it's really difficult because it's like, what books do I want to read over and over and over again? So I think this is cheating probably, but I think I would want to bring Lord of the Rings, but in a 1 bind up. So it's 1 book. So we're going to go with that, and I don't care if it's cheating. And then book number 2. Oh, this is really, really hard. Maybe Crime and Punishment, or maybe like a collection of short stories. I might like a collection of short stories. I don't know. Like Sherlock Holmes, that has so many stories in it. So I feel like that would kind of keep me busy and wouldn't feel as repetitive. I don't know. I'm not really sure on the 3rd book. This is a painful question. Just like asking if I have like a favorite book, because it's essentially asking me what my favorite books are. Hello, Editing Tiffany here with a very sudden epiphany. I realized that I think I would like to bring a survival book with me for my 3rd book. Like, that tells you how to make a fire and has all the poisonous plants, plants you can use for medicinal purposes, plants you can eat, all that kind of stuff. that would be my third book. And the last bookish question on here is, what is your earliest memory of books? I grew up reading books all the time. My mom was always reading picture books and stuff out loud to us. But I remember as a very small child before I went to school that my favorite book was the Butter Battle book by Dr. Seuss. And I actually remember like going to the library and getting that book. That's probably my earliest memory, but my childhood memories are full of books and Disney movies. Disney movies were also a very big part of my childhood. So all the other questions on here are like more personal life questions. A couple of them are spiritually related. So I'm going to do those two first because they are related to the Bible. So it's kind of like a crossover. The bridge between the bookish section and the non-bookish section, because the Bible's a book, so that could count too. So the first question on here is, what is a verse in the Bible or passage in the Bible that you've been going back to a lot lately? And I would say probably Psalm 119, which is like the longest chapter in the Bible. But the whole chapter is about God's word. And I just find I have been going back to that a lot lately and wanting and praying for more of a desire to want to read God's word and memorize God's word. And so I have been returning to that quite a bit lately. And the other question is, if you could use only one book of the Bible to share the gospel, which book would that be? And that's a really difficult question because part of me wants to say Romans, because Romans is really good in terms of showing like the path of salvation. But I actually might go with John, because John is just such a great introduction into who Jesus is. And I think that that's really important. So it would either be John or Romans. I'm really not sure which. Maybe John. Okay, on to other personal questions. So the next question is, what's your word of the year? And I actually do have a word of the year this year. Sometimes I don't do that. I haven't the past like year or two, just because I was not feeling inspired in that way. I was feeling like more structured in like doing goals and stuff. And this year I really didn't have a lot of goals that, I mean, I do have goals. There's always things that I want to be working on, but it was much easier for me to come up with a word. And I just kept feeling the word like over and over again, consistency. That's really what I want in my life, because every year I'll make goals like health goals or reading goals or just spiritual goals. And I just will do well for a time and then I'll fall off and do well for a time and then fall off. And so I would rather make very slow steps to be consistent and keep good habits and good things in my life than continually flip-flop, which is kind of what I've done my whole life. I've only stuck with something when I've felt motivated to change things, and I want to be more disciplined and be consistent. The next question is, if books are off the table, what other hobby would you be doing right now? And I think probably like either bullet journaling or scrapbooking, because I apparently really like paper crafting. The noise level is rising in my house. The next question is, what is your favorite season? And I think the answer to that is fall. Not only do I love the foliage in fall, but that's like my ideal temperatures. Like if it could be like in the 60s all year round, I would be thrilled. Like that is like my favorite temperature, although I really like the 50s as well. So I really love fall. I actually think that spring would be my favorite season, except for that oftentimes it rains so much in spring that you don't necessarily get to enjoy the weather quite as much, but I love like the new life that spring brings. So spring probably would be my favorite season if it wasn't so rainy. Also, no one asked this, but my least favorite season is summer. Which is odd, but I really, really love winter and I love colder weather and I don't love heat. So summer is actually my least favorite. The next question is, do I have any siblings and where do I fall in birth order? So I have two sisters. I have an older sister who's 8 years older than me and a younger sister who's 5 years younger. So I am the middle child. But because my older sister is so much older than me, she actually moved out when I was 10. So when it comes to like personality stuff, I have some of the traits of a middle child and some of the traits of an oldest child because I was the oldest child living at home for half of the time that I was at home. Next question is really interesting, is if I have any nicknames, and if so, like how did I get them? So I think that the only nickname that I hear consistently nowadays is probably Tiff, and only people who really call me that are childhood friends and my family, like my sisters and my mom and my in-laws. Like no one else really calls me Tiff. I had nicknames like growing up that really aren't used very much anymore. When I was looking over these questions, Claire was looking at them with me and she's like, you should put Mama because you became a mother and I call you Mama. The next question is, what is your favorite vacation that you have gone on? And a few years ago, we went on vacation to visit my husband's aunt and uncle who live in Galveston, Texas. And that was like by far like the best vacation I have ever been on. It was just wonderful. I actually really didn't know his aunt and uncle super well before then. I'd actually never met his uncle and we stayed with them while we were there. So I was really worried it was going to be awkward. But they're basically, especially his aunt, are like kindred spirits. And I didn't even really know that until I went there. And it was just very relaxing. It was a beautiful place to be. We went when it wasn't super duper hot. We went to the ocean every single day and it was wonderful. We got to see a lot of the historical stuff that was there too. So it was a great vacation. Another question is there a place that you haven't been but you would still like to go? And I have not been to that many places. So yes, there are lots of places I would still like to go. The two places that are like the highest on my list is Italy. Definitely really want to go to Italy. I really want to go to Venice, especially because I don't know why, I just do. I really want to go to Venice. And then I really would love to go to Prince Edward Island, which is a much more feasible trip, I think, because it's not as far and probably wouldn't be as expensive as a trip to go to Italy. But those are the two places that I would most like to go to. This is a really interesting question. It's, what was your favorite age growing up and why? I've never really thought about this. My least favorite age was preteen. Yeah, don't ever want to go back to that. I think my favorite age would probably be like, I don't know, maybe the 8 to 10 range. I can't remember being like super tiny. I mean, I remember some of kindergarten and stuff and a little bit of being 4, but not that much. So I would say probably 8 to 10 because I was still like really imaginative, still loved to play, still had the time to do like all the things I wanted to do. My mom actually pulled me out of public school when I was 8 and started homeschooling me. So I actually had so much more time to read and play and all that kind of stuff. So I think that those were like my favorite age, and just a time I remember as being like kind of idyllically happy. Wasn't quite as aware yet of all the problems and all the grief of the world. That sounds so cynical, but yeah, I would say 8 to 10. The next question is, name 5 of your favorite things that aren't books. Okay, I'm going with things because I could be like my family and stuff like that, but I'm going with actual things and not people. I would say cooking. I love to cook. I love to eat. So cooking is a big one. Zoos. I love going to the zoo. The zoo is one of my favorite things. We don't live close to a zoo anymore, which is sad because we used to go to the zoo a lot. Music. I love all kinds of music. I'd say the kind that I predominantly listen to right now is classical and worship music, but I listen to pretty much everything except country. Not a fan of that. I love art. I'm not very good at art, but I love like going to art museums, and something we have incorporated into our homeschooling is studying pieces of art, and I really love that. I love like learning how to study art because I never really learned that. So I really love art a lot. And the last answer, I want to say like outdoors, but that's like really broad. I love like living in the country where we live. It's really beautiful, so I could include that. But my favorite outdoor place is definitely like the beach. The ocean is my happy place, preferably if there's like literally no one there. When I used to live in New England, my family and I would go to the beach in like January and February when there was snow on the beach and it was so cold. We wouldn't swim, but we just, all of us really, really love the ocean. The next question is your favorite comfort meal. I would say probably pot roast. I love pot roast, or like sausage, biscuits, and gravy. Those are probably like my 2 favorite comforting meals. The next question is, how did you meet your husband? So you may or may not know that I grew up as a pastor's daughter, so we kind of like lived all over the place. So right after I turned 16, my family and I moved to Massachusetts, where my dad started pastoring a church, which just happened to be the church that my husband grew up in and had always attended. And so we were friends for a little while, not that long. We kind of fell for each other kind of quick. So we moved to Massachusetts towards the beginning of my sophomore year, and by the end of the sophomore year, we were dating, and he was my first boyfriend, and yeah, it's cute. We started dating really young, and we got married really young too. We got married when I was 19 and he was 20, so yeah, we were babies. The next question is, what color would you wear to a Regency ball if you were ever compelled to attend one? This is my favorite question. This is actually an inside joke between Rainy from Rainy Day Reads and I. So I love this question so much. So Rainy, if I was ever compelled to attend a Regency era ball, and if you put one on, I think I would wear either like a very pale blue, maybe like this, but I'm actually leaning towards yellow. I think yellow would be nice. And maybe I could put like flowers in my hair, kind of like Keira Knightley does in the adaptation she was in of Pride and Prejudice. That's kind of what I'm feeling. But you know, anyone in the comments who would love to attend a Regency era ball, tell me what color dress you would wear. The next question is, how did you pick Claire's name? And Claire's name was not just like, oh, we like this name. Her name is very meaningful to us. So Claire is my husband's grandmother's name, and we love her so much. I really didn't grow up close to most of my family, mostly because we moved around so much, but also my grandmother died when I was a teenager, and so after all of that and meeting my husband, his family just kind of like took me in, and I actually call his family like aunt and uncle. I call his grandmother grandma, and we used to go visit her all the time when we lived in the area and just hang out with her. She loves like all the same kinds of books that I do, and she's given me a lot of books, given Claire a lot of books, and she's a very special lady, and we love her very much. And so we knew for a long time that if we ever had a girl, we wanted her middle name to be Claire. Then just the more I thought about it, like the more I realized I really wanted to just name her Claire. So her name is Claire, and her middle name is actually the same as mine, so her name is really super special. The next question is, what is your favorite place that you have lived? And that's really a hard question, because there has been wonderful things about literally every place that I have lived. There's always new things to explore. Every place has different museums, different things about it geographically that make it really special that other areas don't have. But the last two places that we have lived, actually including this and then the last place we have lived, have been my two favorite places that we have ever lived. Where we lived in Illinois just had like a lot of amenities nearby that we really, really loved, and I miss quite a bit. And then where we live now, this is the first place I have ever lived that's like really out in the country. Even as a child, I grew up kind of living in cities. Sometimes I lived in some more like suburban areas, but quite a few of the places I lived were actually cities. So this is very different from anywhere that I've ever lived, and it's so quiet and private and just so beautiful. So this is like really high up there on favorite places that I've lived. Plus, I love Kentucky. People are so nice here. The next question is, what is your favorite food? And I think Indian food is my favorite food. I like all Asian food really, but I would say Indian food is my favorite. I really love curries of all kinds, and I make a lot of Indian food at home, but near where we live, we just had an Indian restaurant open up, and I need to go there like yesterday because I didn't know we had one so close, but it just opened, and that's exciting because we live in a very rural area, and so there's not a whole lot of ethnic foods around us, which is a shame because I prefer ethnic foods to American food pretty much always, I guess, except for pot roast. and biscuits and gravy. But overall, I really prefer ethnic foods. The next question is, what is your favorite animal? And that's a capybara. I actually just filmed a video, it'll be coming out soon, where I talk about like favorite things of fourth quarter of 2021, and I talk about capybaras quite a bit in that video. So I don't want to be like too redundant, but if you don't know what a capybara is, it's the world's largest rodent, and they look like giant guinea pigs, but I think that they weigh like 90 pounds or something, and they're really cute and I love them so much. For years, my favorite animal was a giraffe until I discovered capybaras. Next question I don't have a good answer for, and it said, who is your favorite Golden Girl if you watch Golden Girls? And I have never watched Golden Girls, not even one episode. Maybe I should. So I don't really have an answer. I guess I'm just gonna say Betty White's character because I like Betty White, but I've never even really seen clips of it. So I don't know if I would like it. Maybe I would. Maybe I should give it a try. The next question is, what is your favorite ice cream or dessert? And I actually can't have dairy, so a lot of traditional ice creams are out, but thankfully there is a lot of dairy-free ice creams out there that are pretty good. I really like the So Delicious brand is probably my favorite, but I wouldn't say that ice cream is my favorite dessert. I think that my favorite dessert is probably apple crisp. Although I prefer apple crisp if I can have vanilla ice cream or some whipped cream on it. So I guess that still kind of ties in. But that's my favorite. I don't make it a lot. I wish I made it more because it's actually kind of healthier than a lot of recipes because I usually cut down on the sugar in it, but it also, I don't know, it just has a lot of oats and most of the sweetness comes from the apples, at least the way that I make it. So I love it. It's my favorite. I usually make it like once or twice during the fall, and then I always make it as one of my desserts for Thanksgiving. And then otherwise I don't make it very much, but now I really want to. I feel like I need to make some apple crisps soon. And the last question is a homeschooling question, and it is, what is your favorite and least favorite things about homeschooling? So my favorite thing, I can't say one favorite thing. There's a lot of favorite things. One of which is the flexibility of homeschooling. I love to be able to do school earlier or later, or we often do school on Saturdays because my husband's day off is Monday. So we take Monday off and spend that together as a family day and don't do school during that day. I also love how much I am learning with my daughter. I feel like there's a lot of things I don't remember, or maybe I just didn't learn at all. And so I really love that. And I love being able to tailor my daughter's education to her specifically. We've really kind of come into a groove. It took us a couple years because there's kind of like this mainstream idea of what homeschooling is supposed to look like, and our homeschooling doesn't exactly look like that, but it's what really works for us. And so I like being able to tailor that to her, letting her fly ahead on the subjects she's excelling in and being able to take time with the things that don't come as naturally to her. I think my least favorite thing about homeschooling is probably that there are days when I don't want to, or she doesn't want to, and it's hard. I think like the attitude adjustment part is the part that's hard. And that's actually been very pleasant for us lately, but oftentimes we kind of go through slumps where one or both of us are just having a tough time emotionally or physically, just, you know, working through things. And I have like some chronic health issues, and that can make it really difficult to homeschool when you're not feeling well. And so I think that that's probably like my least favorite thing. I actually really love homeschooling and wouldn't want to do it any other way, even though it's hard at times. The good far outweigh the bad for me. So it's hard for me to think about something that I'm like, wow, that's something about homeschooling I really don't like. But that's definitely it for me, that there are days where it's hard to do it and you still gotta do it. Well, that's the end of this video. It's kind of a long one because there was a lot of questions. You guys submitted so many great questions. So thank you to everyone who asked questions, and thank you to all of you who are subscribed. Like, it means so much to me that there are actually like over 500 at this point. It was 500 when I started asking about this, but I think I'm actually closer to 600 at the time that I'm filming this video. And I can't believe that there are that many people that want to come on here and listen to me talk about books. So I appreciate every single one of you and all of the friendships that I've made with so many of you, and I love chatting with all of you in the comments. And I hope that this was a great video to kind of like get to know me. There's probably lots of things in here that you didn't know about me, even if you've been subscribed from the beginning. So hopefully you learned something new. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below, like maybe some similarities we have or even differences. That's cool too. And if there's any questions, if you didn't get to submit any questions and you'd like me to answer them, you can ask them down below and I'll respond to your comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.